Hey, everyone. So on this week's podcast, we talk about how Apple is no longer going to prohibit marijuana delivery sales from being hosted on their App Store. It's big news, to say the least. Usually when a company of this size makes an announcement like that, does it mean something more? Knowing they work with lobbyists, is there something behind the scenes related to legislation that they may know that the average person doesn't? Find out now in our latest Trade to Black podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. We are a division of the Dales Media Group. Before we get involved into this week's podcast, as usual, all views on the Trade to Black podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Joining me as usual, millennial entrepreneur Anthony Varrell. Anthony, great to have you on. How's things?
How's it going? Good.
Good to see you.
It's another,
big game last week. Your Bengals came up a little bit short, but man, oh man, I thought that you had it. I don't know how they lost that game, but interesting. And
I know how they lost that game. The bullshit referees lost that game, and then Eli Apple should have been the MVP of the goddamn game instead of anybody on the Rams team. That's how they lost that game.
Huh?
I also got robbed because I bet on Aaron Donald for MVP. And no disrespect to Cooper Kupp. I mean, thank you for winning me my fantasy championship. But Aaron Donald deserved the MVP of that 100%. Super Bowl.
I agree. Ben, what's going on, brother? How was your week?
Yeah, it was a really good week. Super Bowl was great last Sunday. I sort of echo Anthony's statements. I thought Aaron Donald was going to win at the MVP, but then, Cooper Kupp was not a bad pick either. I give props out to Sean McVay, who everybody thought was conservative as a coach, couldn't do it in the big game, but to go for it on 4th and 1 on his own 30, 3 timeouts on his own 30-yard line, down by 4. Great. That was the call of the game. He gave a reverse or a jet sweep to Cooper Kupp. He picked up 7 yards on a 4th and 1. That was the call of the game right there.
I know.
Yeah, Sean McVay is actually going to be interesting because a lot of people say he's going to leave.
Oh, he is. He's going to television. I don't know how long he's going to stay.
Why would he leave LA?
He's going to
TV. Because LA went all in this season. Their salary cap is a mess. They're not going to be able to keep the team that they have. Von Miller might be gone. Aaron Donald might be gone. Stafford might have, 2 years left. A lot of people think he's out the door.
I don't think Stafford is going to be around long. Now that he's got a ring. I don't know if he's an LA guy.
Stafford's been in the league, 10 years?
I think, I just don't know how long he's going to play. That's a good question. I just don't think he's an LA guy, but...
Yeah, if you can't keep that nucleus together, forget about it. You're gone. You're out of town. He doesn't want to rebuild. He just built.
Yeah, but he did spend 12 years in Detroit, so he's used to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Want to begin cannabis. Good price action earlier this week for the sector, despite volatility in the broad markets. MSOs bounced off and held the 50-day moving average 3 times, which, needless to say, is a good sign. 2-3 weeks ago, we were talking about how Pablo Zuanich was saying cannabis is dead money. Ben, let's start with you. What's changed, and do you think we maybe have turned the corner?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, the way I look at things, it's more of a bottoming process right now. I think Pablo Zuanich's dead money call is still very much in play, potentially. I think it all depends on what happens in Washington, regulatory front. I mean, it's all about that right now. Anybody who's been paying attention to the sector for the last year kind of knows this, because we have to get something to propel the sector out of its low valuation trap, if you want to call it that, and that really requires a catalyst. So Pablo Zuanich's call is still in play, but then again, things can change very quickly if safe banking or the COA Act that Schumer is going to introduce in April comes through. I mean, that's going to change the dynamics, and then we can have a 60 to 80% run in the sector quite easily. So it's one of those situations where both things are at play. You could be sort of a dead money trade that is potentially in the cards. If nothing happens, safe banking fails, COA fails, and Safe Plus after that fails, then you go into the midterms, and then you have the election. Who knows who the Senate Majority Leader is at that point? So, but we'll see. So you know, it's competing narratives at the moment.
Anthony, what are you hearing?
I kind of mimic Ben's sentiment. I mean, I said fade Pablo. I mean, I was right in the short run. But I mean, if there's a sweep of all this regulatory stuff getting shot down, we'd have it is dead money for this year. I mean, I'm still loading on my sweeps. I've got a couple of MSOs that I'm trading and averaging in on, which I'm not selling, and I don't plan on selling within the next 3 to 5 years. So my time horizon's pretty long.
Yeah.
But it's really, there's a ton of uncertainty right now around cannabis.
That's the key. What you just said, though, is I've got a timeline of 3 to 5 years. And
yeah,
when you look at a lot of the investor base right now, that's clearly not the same mentality. Do you think that changes, or like what's the most, and I don't want to give investment advice, but when you guys are looking at this space, that needs to be hit home, is it not? Like looking at this at least 3 to 5 years out?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing with crypto. I've got a 3 to 5 year time horizon. I don't give a shit what happens in the next 4 to 6 months. The problem is all of the investors come into these high growth spaces and they think they're traders and they think they're going to time the market and make a bunch of money in the next 30, 60, 90 days. Good luck. Try that and let us know when you lose all of your money, because that's usually the result. I'm not a trader. I'm an investor. I invest in assets that I find attractive. I think have a lot of upside and I think are in growth industries. And I mean, that's just how I invest. I don't care what it is 6 months from now. I'll have cash on the sidelines and more dry powder to double down or even add to my winners that continue to go up. But I mean, cannabis is in no way, shape, or form a 1 year play. And I mean, I've had that time horizon since 2016, and it's just forecasting out to the upside now.
I think Anthony's got the right attitude here, and I would say, probably the correct thing to do if you're a cannabis investor is invest on the assumption that federal regulatory reform is not going to happen this year. Right. So if
Correct.
you do that, I think over a 3 to 5 year timeline, you're going to be rewarded because eventually it's going to go through. The momentum is slowly building. It's just all politics on Capitol Hill holding it back. It's Schumer wanting to get the comprehensive bill versus, the layup and safe right now. So, but if you just like drown out all the noise and invest like you assume that none of that's going to happen, and then look at your account statement 3 to 5 years later, I think you're going to be, quite happy with the results.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, when you talk about the development and long term, interesting news this week, news from Apple and how they will no longer prohibit marijuana delivery services from being hosted on its app store. This is big, when you get a backing from, a technology company, a branding company like that. There's obviously a few restrictions, meaning any marijuana app must be geo-restricted in certain jurisdictions where cannabis is not legal. But gentlemen, like this is big news, and I guess further complements what you're saying, Anthony, about looking at this as to a 3 to 5 year window for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's Apple. It's the biggest app store. It's the biggest platform in the world as far as the consumer goes for access. So I mean, if they're opening themselves up to cannabis delivery, like, it's amazing. That's a step in the right direction. I would even argue that might be telegraphing that regulatory shifts are coming. Apple doesn't make a decision without knowing something is in the pipeline. Yeah, I mean, they don't. They've got lobbyists. They've got the capital. They've got the ears. Like, those companies do not move unless they know that the addressable market is growing and something's coming down the pipe. I'm not saying that they know that for certain, but Apple, Amazon, they're calculated. They don't just do things to do things. So, I mean, it definitely tells me that we are moving in the right direction. And with these big boys starting to come online and align themselves with the cannabis sector, it tells me that there's something greater down the line that's already been put in motion.
100%. That's my biggest takeaway as well. Because anybody who wants cannabis in a legal state, they don't need to go to the Apple app store and get delivery service. They know where it is. So it's not even really a sales thing. It's more of the fact that they're getting on board, that they have big lobbyist power, that a big world-class corporation, probably top 3 in market cap, top 5, is on board essentially in the long term. And that's going to go, that's going to go far in terms of the lobbyists, in terms of the government action and what they're going to do in terms of the regs. knowing where the wind is blowing and it's going in that direction. So it's more of an affirmation sign, I think, for cannabis investors that, the trend is immutable at this point. I think we can, along with the Amazon news last week, I think we can all understand that now.
Wouldn't you love?
Yeah, I mean, if Facebook comes along and says, "Hey, we're now going to allow cannabis to be advertised platform wide," forget about it. That means that something's done.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to see cannabis in the metaverse. That's what I want to see.
I mean, that's going to happen. But I mean, if Facebook,
how's that happen?
And the ad and
the
ad
work. That would be interesting. Explain how that would work.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to get high in the metaverse as it's a digital experience, but I mean, there's certain NFTs out there right now that can induce like a psychedelic experience when you're wearing VR. So like, for instance, a cannabis company could cultivate 5 different strains, and each strain, when you activated that NFT, could really alter your perception of what you're consuming content-wise in the metaverse.
I just love the idea of like, I don't know, what was it, 3-4 years ago, everybody was raising money in this space was claiming that they were going to be the Amazon of cannabis. And really the only one that's going to be the Amazon of cannabis is Amazon.
Yeah, we saw Driven Deliveries try to do that, and they crashed and burned.
We plan to be the Amazon of cannabis. You heard that almost every other day. But
well, in fact,
a sector is getting frothy when it's we're going to be the blank of blank.
You know what?
We had the Uber of cannabis, the Amazon of cannabis. Yeah.
While we're on this topic, pro tip for investors: any company claiming that they want to be the Amazon of cannabis, do not invest in that company.
Yeah.
As we saw with Driven Deliveries, as we saw in the Canadian landscape with Namaste, they plan to be the Amazon of cannabis in Canada.
Namaste was a dumpster. Yeah. Namaste was a dumpster
size
fire.
And scale.
Like that,
size and
that
scale,
entire,
boys.
Oh, God. Namaste. Those guys, yeah. That was a client of mine back in the day.
Oh, boys. Long time. Think of how much this industry...
I've never seen somebody fumble a... I can't. I'm not even going to say it.
All right. News out of Washington. Senate Bill 1074 was introduced and suggests an end to what's called the flat rate cannabis cultivation tax in the state of California, the biggest cannabis market, obviously, in the country. So if passed, the dry weight tax on growers' yield would fall off the books July 1st. The current tax rate is $10.08 per dry weight ounce for flower and $3 per dry weight ounce for leaves. So if passed, translate this for us, Ben. Why changes, or what changes, obviously, could we see? And most importantly, the benefits that we can anticipate for operators within that state.
Yeah, it's a very simple equation. Take out the tax of the product and make it cheaper to consume and to buy, then it's going to help sales, right? And also, these tax burdens have been very heavy, especially on the smaller dispensaries, independent dispensaries, where they have to charge high prices because of excise taxes, cultivation taxes. They all kind of pile up, right? So it's been creating a very muddled industry in California where the black market is dominating in a lot of places because obviously they're not subject to that. And then, cannabis has grown all over the place in Humboldt County, a few counties up in the north. So it's all over the place, essentially. So when you lower the tax burden, you lower the cost of legal product, and then it's going to make it more attractive to consumers. It's basically that. Now, the excise tax is going to go up, I believe, 1% in 2025, and 2026 goes up another percent. So there are counter costs to that, but in the short run, hopefully this is a measure that gets the state's legal market in going, because it's been a real mess there.
What's your view?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Anthony.
Go ahead, Chad.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I think it's great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to complain, but I'd like to see people start coming out of jail in line with these economic incentives. But I mean, but it's what we need. I mean, this is a huge step in the right direction, because 280E, the tax burdens that are put on these companies is just egregious, and what they're forced to operate in.
We could be here all day talking about the concerns that we have within the California market, but as we see stuff like this start to change, is this market one day going to live up to its expectations? Will it be, or you don't think it'll ever come to fruition, Anthony?
You mean like California being like the dominant cannabis market?
One of them, if not the, but one of them. Like, as you said it, like there's.
I see California. I see California as this. I don't think you're ever extinguishing the black market in California. Yeah. There's just too much of it, and it's been too prevalent for too long. But if you are if you are an MSO, if you are a brand, if you cannot compete in California, and if you cannot operate and gain market share with the California consumer, you're never going to be seen as a nationwide brand. Point blank. But I mean, I don't think California is going to be this crown jewel of the cannabis industry. It's probably going to be New York or Florida if we ever get it together. Or I mean, shit, even Illinois. I mean, the numbers in Illinois are gangbusters. Huge. And I know California is it's a greater than a $5 billion industry right now. But I mean, I just don't see it being that like epicenter of cannabis. I feel like it's already started to leave per se, because nobody can operate there. Yeah,
there's still a lot of attention that focuses on it, but when you look at, you said
Tons.
Illinois,
but it's a proving
Pennsylvania.
ground. I think California's a proving ground.
Yeah.
If you want to be in finance, you got to move to New York. You got to go cut your teeth and prove that you can do it. If you want to be a nationally recognized cannabis brand, if you want to do it, go to California. If you can do it, you'll be successful probably.
Yeah. Let's switch now to psychedelics. Price action continues to be relatively flat, no surprise. But, when we look at the behind the scenes again, industry continues to grow at a rapid pace as far as framework. This week, Cybin was actually featured in Tony Robbins' #1 New York best-selling book called Life Force, where he disclosed that he had a position in Cybin and highlights how the company is playing a key role in bringing molecular achievements to the forefront to address major depressive order. Ben, it's pretty impressive, obviously, for an industry that it's just getting off the ground. You have one of the industry leaders in the space and arguably one of the most motivational speakers the world has ever seen is an investor in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good press for the sector and the company to have Tony Robbins. I mean, he's like the #1, as you mentioned, motivational speaker in probably the history of the world, or one of them, up there with some of the greats. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but there's been a few, and he's definitely up there. Cybin also announced a partnership with the Chopra Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization founded by Deepak Chopra. So, Cybin, I have to give them credit. They aligned a lot of institutional investors to invest in their company. They got the influencer market down pat, and they just seem to foment a lot of good relationships in the sector. But overall, yes, it's definitely an indication that the sector is going mainstream, along with Cathy Wood as well. It's great news for the sector, I think, just in a publicity aspect of it.
Anthony, what was your thought of it all?
I think it's great. Like, cool. Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra. That's awesome. You can build all the influencers you want and create a media machine, but at the end of the day, their core competency here isn't publicity. It's to build. Yeah. It's to build, research, and deploy commercialized psychedelic compounds. And until they do that, I don't really care about them. That grandiose announcement that they were supposed to do at Wonderland back in November was a complete sell the news event that the stock got wrecked on. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably the largest decline they've had in a single day around that. So, all that tells me is insiders were sitting there selling into everything. So, don't go to Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, et cetera. I don't think this is a recreational play. They're not selling CBD or any kind of functional mushrooms. This is a drug development and research organization. You don't see Eli Lilly and Pfizer going to Tony Robbins and aligning themselves with them. I think it's great that they've invested. I'd love to know how much they invested, because for Tony Robbins to write a $200,000 check, it means nothing. Right. That's play money for him. I'd rather them put their head down, stop with all the publicity, and actually let's get some IND meetings on the books, and let's start to actually create the path forward from a research perspective to get something into commercialization. Until that, though, I could care less about them. I think that ATAI and Compass are probably two of the only big boys in the space that would warrant investment dollars right now.
Very good point.
I was going to say, when you talk about putting your head down, doing the work and the research, ATAI, obviously, when you look at this company, comes to the forefront for sure. Last week,
granted, also full disclosure, I'm a shareholder of ATAI. Okay. I've got a very large position in ATAI that I keep adding.
Full disclosure,
so I'm obviously talking my own. Yeah, I'm obviously talking my own book. But I think that they're the most valuable. They have the most valuable IP portfolio as well as cash position, and their ownership in Compass. I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you're going to pick a horse in the race, you go with ATAI.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I have a position in it as well. But when we talk about that, this is a company right now that I don't think people really understand the amount of research that they are doing and what they have within their pipeline. But one person that does understand is Cathy Wood, and obviously her position in the company last week. So that was big news, knowing that some of the biggest biotech companies in the world are associated with that particular, they have a rich history of obviously investing within the space. But I don't want to get involved in what this means, obviously, for ATAI, but do we see a trend of institutions that start to follow suit in the coming months, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. I think the institutions mainly do their own due diligence and make decisions based on what their needs are. But it's definitely a good sign when someone like Cathy Wood jumps in the market. I know it was only 0.01% in the initial stake in the company, but the symbolism here is fantastic, right? It also means, too, that it provides that put on the market that we've been talking about, how the sector had been dripping lower, inch by inch without any sort of base to absorb shares. And I think the more Cathy Woods in the sector you get, the more that there's going to be these funds buying some positions and holding up some of these names in times of market volatility and distress. So it's good from that standpoint as well. But yeah, I think you can make a generalization that if somebody like Cathy Wood is getting in for a genomics ETF, then other institutions are kicking the tires. So I would fully expect, although they do their own research and take positions on their own needs, I would fully expect that, more are going to come in, in the first half. We're going to see more of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Cathy Wood. I like that everyone thinks she's crazy because everyone thought Elon Musk was crazy. Everyone thought the Web 1 pioneers were crazy. Everyone thought the crypto guys were crazy. And look at where we are now. I mean, she's investing in innovation. She's investing in clean energy, genomics, crypto, fintech. Now psychedelics. She's going to put some in her portfolio. I'm all about it.
Yeah, I love the comment.
I think that we're going to be sitting here. We're going to be sitting here 15 years from now. People aren't going to be calling her crazy. They're going to be calling her probably the Warren Buffett of her time.
Yeah, she basically said on Bloomberg this week, shorting innovation is just plain crazy, and it's stupid. Stupid.
It's stupid. She actually put out two of her analysts put out price targets on Bitcoin and Ethereum this week. $1 million price target on Bitcoin and $180,000 price target on Ethereum.
180? 180,000.
Yeah, within 10 years. In 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
You know what? I can't get on board with, right? We saw the same thing in the
There's an hour and a half. There's an hour and a half podcast. There's an hour and a half podcast you can listen to where both of our analysts deep dive into exactly why they came up to these conclusions, and it's pretty compelling.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, we saw in the cannabis industry, sorry to backtrack there for a second, but, some smaller firms, I wouldn't even call them analyst firms, I'll, keep them unnamed for now, put $300 price targets on Afria for, in 2029 at the time, or 2028. It just, when you look at 10-year price targets, so much can change. I'm sure it was compelling. I don't doubt that. And I love crypto, and I'm totally on board. But can you really buy into something that's looking 10 years down the road, Anthony?
No, not at all. But I mean, the thing is you're also talking about something that's a scalable technology with mass adoption that's not even anywhere near close to, let's say, a decent amount of concentration among the population. And it's not going to get any bigger. It's just going to get fractionalized, and the supply and demand is going to go up. I mean, I think it's a compelling argument. I mean, if those things hit, awesome. If they get anywhere near that, awesome. But I mean, I thought it was a pretty compelling argument. And I mean, she's a huge crypto bull. Yeah. And the two guys that she had working for her, two analysts, seem pretty sharp. While I don't think it's practical to really give out those price targets, and I do agree with you, I think it's a good conversation.
One thing though, Bitcoin's a little bit bigger than a free, is it not?
Yeah, just buy a little bit.
Just to close the loop on Cathy Wood, at least with a tie this time, she seemed to buy at good levels because, she strikes me as the kind of person who just buys, she'll just keep buying on the way up. She just, she doesn't really give price point, a lot of consideration. If she likes a position, she'll just go ahead and buy it. At least with the tie, she's buying at what I think are very, very strong price points, under $1 billion or under $900 million shares outstanding, undiluted, which is, I think, over the long term, this is going to be a fantastic price. I think.
Oh yeah, and it all stems back to what I had said: 3 to 5 year time horizon. Which her time horizon is obviously 10 years. It's longer. She does not care what you purchase it for.
That's the message. 3 to 5 years in this week's podcast. Well, that $1 million price tag, might be well on its way in due time, because as we switch now to crypto, don't look now, but Warren Buffett is backing Bitcoin. And let me repeat that. Warren Buffett is backing Bitcoin. He invested $1 billion into a crypto-friendly bank this week, which is a digital bank that focuses on crypto. Anthony, what's this say about the industry, knowing that you have perhaps the savviest investor the world has ever seen now backing it?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's been a good headline. I would also take a little bit of a step back, and as to add some context, Berkshire Hathaway actually deployed the $1 billion into the bank, which doesn't necessarily mean that Warren put it in, but all the headlines that I'm seeing are screaming Warren. Warren Buffett put $1 billion into Bitcoin. It's amazing.
Well, he's going to know about that transaction, so obviously he has a pretty big influence in say, right?
Yeah. But his portfolio managers right now at Berkshire are completely autonomous. They do his management style. He lets them. He's hands off. They do whatever they want to do, and they're stewards of the capital. But it's amazing to have a name like Berkshire backing a financial institution that's centered around crypto. It's funny because Charlie Munger, his partner, came out this week and actually called Bitcoin a venereal disease to the financial services industry, and he couldn't be any more against it. So I would love to be a fly on the wall when those two speak next time.
You know what, Anthony?
He literally came out and said it's a venereal disease.
Anthony, it's interesting you said that, because I was just going to come back and respond to what you said and tell you about that Charlie, and wonder whether Charlie Munger was actually involved in the process, because a viral tweet came out this week where Elon Musk had a conversation with Charlie Munger, had like a lunch with them in 2009, and Charlie Munger rattled off all the reasons why Tesla would fail. But apparently Elon Musk said, yeah, you're probably right. I agree with all that, but it's worth trying anyway. And look where Tesla is today, right? So it'd be interesting to see.
It couldn't make me. It couldn't make me happier. The actual demographic of the people that keep calling crypto crazy and keep calling crypto a scam, because they're the same people that have been investing like they have for the last 30 years, and they just don't fundamentally understand it, and they don't fundamentally need to understand it, because they've generated their wealth in other mediums. They're richer than shit right now, and it doesn't matter for them. But usually when people have this much disdain for something and call something this crazy, that it's purely a function of not understanding it, usually it works out, and usually it's going somewhere. So I'll welcome Charlie Munger and Jamie Dimon and everybody keep coming out and saying crypto's a scam. Crypto's a scam. It has no place in society. And I mean, the industry will just keep growing.
Hey,
so they can just be subject to that.
Speaking of Jamie Dimon, I know we're might be getting short on time, but speaking of Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan joined the Metaverse. I don't know if you saw that. They're on the Metaverse this week.
Yeah, they're all going to jump in. I mean, dude, they're all going to jump in. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Twitter, they're all going to need to be levered to Web3 and levered to the crypto consumer. They're done. I mean, that's where the consumer's money is literally going.
It's such a generational thing, though. It's like everywhere you look, big business is still run by the baby boomer generation. And that's why they're saying they're losing control, though. Absolutely. I mean, they're quickly losing control. Absolutely. And that they're quickly losing control through things like crypto. Yeah. Yeah. Last thing I wanted to touch on, and this brings up, probably ties in everything that we're saying. Anthony, you made a post the other day about how the blockchain never lies. I love this. And what I'm referring to is that someone with the winning bid in Melania Trump's NFT auction appears to have come from a wallet associated with Melania Trump, which obviously now appears to be a publicity stunt. So another example as to how this validates, obviously, the blockchain. Clearly, people that are getting into this space and how they could cover things up in the traditional banking system before have not done their homework or truly understand how this works. What was your thought and reaction to that? Did you laugh?
I mean, it's funny. I thought it was satire when I read it, but it's actually true. I mean, she's launching a 10,000 NFT collection on Solana. They had a one of one that was on auction for $250K. No one wanted to buy it. No one. So wallet linked to her wound up actually purchasing it for $180,000. And I mean, what that signifies to me is that whoever she's working with or whoever is giving her advice has no idea how the blockchain works, because it's all auditable and it's all public. If you can see what wallets are purchasing what in real time and go on EtherScan or go on one of the websites and it's fucking there. Like, you can't hide
it. And this blew up too online.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah. Melania Trump literally wash traded her own NFT.
When are we going to see bored Trumps instead of bored apes?
If I didn't think Trump would sue the shit out of me for using his name and his likeness on his face, I'd probably go start that NFT project right now. Yeah. Because it would work.
Yeah. That's a wrap for this week, guys. Next week, I want to touch on how Russia playing a key role, obviously, in the crypto space. Obviously, what's going on with Ukraine. I want to touch on that. But
well, let's see if they invade them by then.
Yeah. Before I let you go, what did you guys think of that halftime show?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I love that everybody was up in arms about Eminem taking a knee. And if they really wanted to, there's a line in, I forget which Dr. Dre song, but it's like, motherfuck the popo. And they literally beeped out popo on the live broadcast, meaning that they were sensitive to the subject matter. And then everybody still wanted to condemn the network for allowing Eminem to take the knee. So, I mean, it's just, people are going to talk, and it's ridiculous. But the performance was great.
Yeah, I thought it was so monumental.
I felt bad for 50 Cent. But
why is that? You think he looks like?
Because everyone was making fun of him. Everyone was saying he was fat.
75 cent. You were calling him $1, 75 cent, right?
No, everyone was like, 50 Cent turned into, everyone's like 50 Cent turned into a full dollar. People were like going bananas on the internet because he looked thick when he was like hanging upside down, and everyone was calling him fat. He even went on Instagram and created a post himself making fun of himself, saying that he just doesn't fucking care. Like, I'm rich, I'm 50 Cent, you can call me whatever you want. Yeah, I know he doesn't.
Mary J. Blige, I didn't realize this, is close to 60. 60!
Oh, yeah, she looked great, too.
It's incredible. But, yeah, I think it was really good. It solidified, obviously, what that genre of music just meant for pop culture. And
it's timeless.
Everybody I spoke to, it's like the 21st century Motown is what I see. But it's amazing how everybody in LA I was speaking to afterwards just thought they got this right. So, a good day overall.
Oh, it was the best halftime show. I think it's the best halftime show I've ever seen. And I mean, I'm biased because I obviously grew up listening to all that music. But I mean, in years past, it's been awful.
The only thing that was missing is Snoop Dogg smoking on stage. I think he had a couple drags before he went on stage.
I won that prop. And thank God, because afterwards, I was actually seeing highlights. He was sitting on the side of the stage before coming out of the halftime presentation, burning blunts left and right. And I'm like, I don't know if that's technically considered on stage, but regardless, money was deposited in my account.
Yeah, that was probably a good prop to take. That's probably one of the only forums that he wouldn't smoke in.
Yeah, that's for sure. What a game. And man, oh man, what a stadium. That place is unbelievable.
Oh, that stadium's ridiculous.
Like, what a Super Bowl, that's for sure. All right, gents, have a great week.
All right, guys, talk soon.
Thanks, Chad.